welcome to SimWorld today, the day after Christmas. The hangover is in full merry effect. I am Marsh, joined by Maestro. Good morning, Maestro. How are you? And I hope you had a fantastic Christmas holiday.
Thank you, my man, Marshall. Hopefully you did too. I was not expecting to hear the hangover was in full effect. So that was
The
a good
holiday
game.
hangover, I'm
You
not
got me.
saying we were inebriated last night. I'm just saying, you get all the buildup of merriment, and then it's the day after merriment, and here
Oh,
here
good
we
one.
are.
Good one.
A day after plenty of sports activities, two SWFL games, five SWBA games. Let's start with the FL side of the house, where for the second straight week, we had the same four teams playing alone on a day. And for the second straight week, two of them look like playoff teams, and two of them did not. Let's start with the Chiefs, and you can take it whichever way you want with the Chiefs and Ravens. Chiefs stopped the Steelers. That game looks like it was competitive from a score perspective. It was not. And then the Ravens absolutely demolish the Texans 31-2. Your thoughts and your takeaways from all that activity?
People talk about the Chiefs march and they talk about how they've been sort of off balance this whole season, and I keep saying the same thing. You have to make sure you drive a wooden stake through their heart in the middle of the daylight to make sure that they go away. They're one of four teams that have not scored 30 points this season, and yet look at this. The other three, the Patriots at 3 and whatever, the Giants at 2 and whatever, and then the Raiders at 3 and whatever, and then you have the Kansas City Chiefs who know how to win. They've done it all year. They know how to play their game, and they know what they need to do, and they're getting healthy at the right time. It's hard to go against them, and you're so right about what's going on with the Ravens. They are a team that have played hard all year, much like the other teams that are sort of everybody's looking at favorites with having MVP players on it, like Lamar Jackson and I'm apologize, the running back Henry. And then Buffalo has their quarterback, whose name flashed out of my head real quick because we're not talking about them. But those teams have played so well and still lost more games than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are just ready, but the Ravens, I think, are peaking at the right time too. Because guess what they did? As you just put it, they trucked Houston yesterday, and Houston showed us something. Houston showed us a little something though, but not yesterday because the Ravens are in playoff mode already.
So here's what I don't get about the Chiefs argument. People want to complain about Kansas City and they're winning close games, and that's very hard to do. That's a lot of luck. We have not given, I think, enough credit to the Chiefs' defense. We have been in this panic mode. The sky is falling in Kansas City the entire season because they're 15-1, but they don't look it. They get these there's been questionable calls. There's also just been good luck on the Chiefs' side late in these football games. But they are very much like Pittsburgh, because we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and say, how can this team win football games? How can they be 10-6? How can they be a playoff team? Well, their defense is incredible. Their defense is really good, and their quarterback play is kind of mediocre. It's not really that good, but it's good enough to keep you competitive in games. Your defense is going to carry you for these. But that's what the Chiefs are, except it's better in both instances. The Chiefs give up the fifth fewest yards of any team in the entire SWFL, yet they have the really good quarterback who can play mediocre for three quarters, but if it's the fourth quarter and I need to drive, I'm going to trust Patrick Mahomes a heck of a lot more than I'm going to trust Russell Wilson late in these games. So we've been so infatuated with this the Chiefs aren't good argument that we've completely overlooked that they have one of the best defenses in the entire league. While they have not invested in elite wide receivers, they have invested in a very elite defense with the simple notion of defense keeps it close, defense doesn't allow big games, doesn't allow big yards, and then Patrick Mahomes is going to come in the fourth quarter. He's going to be the best quarterback in the entire league yet again. On the other side, the Texans side, this is concerning. This isn't surprising. Last year was so good for CJ Stroud. To expect him to just continue that trend, that's not progression. You hear it from a lot of folks, a lot of smart folks. Progression is not linear. You're going to have steps up, you're going to have steps down. This is a obvious step down this season for CJ Stroud. This has not been a good season for the Houston Texans, despite the fact that they're going to make the playoffs here. But this is what we should have expected after a very, very good rookie season for CJ Stroud. He was not going to continue on that progression line.
And the reality of the expectation of young quarterbacks. Think about Troy Aikman. He comes in the league. I think he won 1 game his first season or 2 games his first season. Peyton Manning won 1 or 2 games their first season. If they were in today's world of expectation, the team would have been drafting a new quarterback probably in the next year or the year after that. So what I like about Stroud, I would just say this outright. Teams have film on him, right? I'm sorry, video. We don't have film anymore. People have video on him now, but he still manages to give you those moments where you see his upside is so strong that he's going to find a way to come through it as soon as the team coalesces around him and they get their roster situation settled. Houston's going to be something to look at for real.
Baltimore now sitting as the 3rd seed, 11-5. They'd be set to play the Chargers in the first round. Texans would get the Steelers, the 2 teams that have lost the last 2 weeks in these little 4-team round robin that we've been seeing start ending yesterday, going back the week before. That would be Texans and Steelers. All right, let's head to SWBA. We had plenty to get to, so we'll go 3. We'll dive into 3 of them. We'll start with the T-Wolves and the Mavericks. What was a very entertaining game that the Mavericks get the 105-99 win on. Rematch of last season's Western Conference Finals goes to the way of the Wolves. At all surprised by this one, and a Wolves team that tried as best they could to give this thing away in the 4th quarter?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying it that way too. I think it was because, and oh man, I never thought I'd say something like this. When Luka Doncic pulled up hurt, I think it changed the vibe of the team and the expectation of who they could lean on. And I think that had maybe more to do with it than anything else. And it's going to be really curious to see how they're going to be able to maintain their ability here to be the sort of impactful team that they were looking like they were starting to be. I don't know if I'm saying that particularly right. Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic. There we
go. Thank you. He is definitely one of those players that more, and we talked about this, a little bit, before when we talked about like our MVP players, right? I think we got a chance to get a sneak preview into how much of the backbone of the team he really is. Once he went out, it seems as though the whole mood changed, right? So it's going to be curious to see how they're going to be able to move forward. That was the one thing that I couldn't even think about the score and how well Ant-Man played, because I wish he was with the Hawks instead of the I'm sorry, with the Wolves, but that's a whole nother thing. But I can even think about how good he played yesterday, because I kept thinking, wow, look at where the Mavs are going right now. And that's what I really took away from the game, Marsh.
I took away that the Wolves woke up. This has been a Timberwolves team that's kind of been sleepwalking this season. Ant has had some stunning comments. He has made some, very pointed comments about his team and his play. It's not as if he's just kind of pointing the finger everywhere, but they just looked like they woke up, and it's about darn time they did, because this has been a team that had massively high expectations coming into the year, and they just have not lived up to it. And a lot of that vitriol from the Wolves fan base has been aimed, I think, unfairly at Julius Randle. It's not Randle's fault that this team decided they needed to blow it up. The blow up was going to happen no matter who was leaving town, whether it was Gobert, whether it was Karl Anthony Towns, and it certainly was not going to be Anthony Edwards. It just happened to be that's the only deal that was really on the table for this team, and they struggled afterwards, which shouldn't be that big of a surprise considering the offensive workload that Cat plays. It's just the rest of this roster has not lived up to it. Last night they did. Sure, there's some concern about that rally at the end, but if I'm the Wolves, I'm looking at this and saying, finally we showed some type of backbone. And this is what these holiday games can sometimes do. They can springboard you into something positive. I think that's the case. For the Mavs, I'd be a little concerned. There's already reporting out that Doncic could be out for an extended period of time. He has dealt with calf strains for, it seems like, the past 3 years. He's been dealing with a calf strain. He always has the black leg sleeve on underneath the white leggings. You can tell that he's got something going on there. It slowed him down 2 playoffs ago. It was a topic last season. I think that's a very big concern if you're looking at the long-term hopes for this Mavs team, which has really been the second or third best team in the Western Conference all season long. So that would be a challenge if he were to be out. Let's go to Sixers-Celtics, where the Sixers get a surprising win over the Celtics on the road. I mean, look at that face, Maestro. I'll let you take it from here. What's going on?
Oh, March, you and I mushed everybody, didn't we? I mean, we went
Sure
0 for 5, and I think we just actually went 0 for 6 in a game we didn't even pick because we were just going to be wrong anyway. You know, at first I was looking at the game. I was really excited because it's my first time to really get a chance to watch myself play. I wouldn't say myself, but I like the Celtics. That was my first chance to really get a chance to watch them play. And that slow start was a nightmare. And I was like, okay, are they going to pick it up later? What's going to go down? What's going to happen? But the Sixers showed some kind of game yesterday that really made me think, what are people saying about this team that's supposed to be missing? Because they had everything working on point. And the interesting thing about it, even though the Celtics tried to get back in the game with that slow start with their fourth quarter, the Sixers have built up such a lead, March, that the Celtics just were basically scratching the wall against themselves. And I was really surprised, but I kept going back to that very slow start saying they dug a hole, they couldn't get out of it.
We loved to bury the the Sixers early on in this season. They were 3-14. They were going nowhere. This team is awful. They should maybe consider trading Paul George. Joel Embiid can't stay healthy. What is going on with this basketball team? Since then, they've got 8-3. This schedule has not been all of that challenging. Really, the Celtics game yesterday, Maestro, was the best team that they've played, and they've been able to win. The only other notable win was San Antonio, but they are now in position for the play-in. 1 game behind the Bulls and the Pistons, 3 games back of the Hawks and the Pacers, 3.5 of the Heat, who might not even have this team as is currently constructed by the end of the season. So the Sixers are back in the hunt. They never left the hunt because the East is so bad. That being said, yesterday, watching Joel Embiid, I felt 2 very different opinions. On the one side, I thought he moved up and down the court very well. He did not look lumbering. He did not look out of shape. He looked capable of playing basketball. On the other side, he went to a stupid 22 to 20 foot step back like 8 times in a row in the third quarter alone. Missed every single one of them. And it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And somehow Joel Embiid thought he was channeling his inner James Harden or Steph Curry. To me, that reads as somebody who doesn't want to go inside, who's not ready to be physical. And I was surprised by that because he looked so smooth and fluid running up and down the floor. So, like, the positive for me taking this, or really the takeaway in general, is the Sixers were never out of the playoff hunt, but they're back in it with an 8-3 stretch. They've been playing really good. We loved to bury them. I do not hear nearly the same amount of vitriol around this Sixers team in terms of their 8-3 positivity that we saw to match the negativity. If you're going to bring the negative energy, you got to match that positive. And I think the Sixers have been really positive. I say this a lot. I don't read into 1-game losses for teams that have given us a huge track record of success. The Celtics losing yesterday does not change who I think they are. Doesn't change their outlook. I think this is more of a positive for the Sixers, getting a big win against a team that they really needed to stack up some wins against competent basketball teams as they try to get back to 500. Speaking of back to 500, the Golden State Warriors, after a 12-3 start, are now just 1 game above 500 because Austin Reeves nails the coffin shut last night with a game-winning layup with 1 second left to sink Golden State as what was an absolutely stunning Steph Curry comeback. All that for naught because of Austin Reeves. Your takeaway from a Lakers win last night, Maestro?
You know, I think of Stephen Curry the same way I think of a Major League Baseball pitcher that I used to love watching back in the day, and that's Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux would go out there and he'd pitch these games, and he'd lose 2-1 or 3-2. And I think of Stephen Curry the same way. He's able to, no matter what's going on, no matter what is going on with him, he's able to keep his team in the game. But for 1 or 2 plays at the end, just like what we saw yesterday, what we actually see is He did what he needed to do. He carried his water to not only get his team back in the game, but give them a chance. And what happens? Wole! Austin Reeves goes in, caps off a triple-double with that score I believe it was a triple-double with that score at the end of the game. And all of a sudden you forget all of the stuff that Stephen Curry did. Marsh, I know we're supposed to be Christmas, supposed to be talking good stuff, and you're so right about that. But I would tell you something right now. I would, at one point, as we get into the twilight of Stephen Curry's career, and I know that's kind of harsh to say, I like to see him in a position like this against a team like the Lakers, when not only does he shine, but he gets the support all throughout his shine. Because can you imagine how many more wins he would have? The Lakers, I'm not surprised. Whatever the Lakers are going to be, they're going to be. They show up when the lights are on and the lights are the brightest. That's just the kind of team they are. And they're going to do what they're going to do, right? Especially against a team like Golden State. So the fact that they won the game wasn't so much as a surprise as how it happened was a disappointment for myself.
I knew they were going to lose. I knew they were going to lose when they were down 9. That shouldn't have been a shock. But I knew they were going to lose when they tied it, because this is what happens with the Golden State Warriors over the last 3 seasons. They make things close, and they lose close games. It's a far cry from who they were 5 seasons ago when they were winning championships and contending. This team does not know how to close basketball games. And Steph Curry was fantastic last night. But there's 3 words that tell me this season is not going to get much better for Golden State. Players-only meeting. Tell me the last time a championship had a players-only meeting and ended up turning it drastically around. The worst part is Golden State had a players-only meeting before the game and still managed to lose this basketball game. Andrew Wiggins could not stop Austin Reeves, and he's supposed to be the Warriors' lockdown, defend the best player on the other side stopper, and you can't stop Austin Reeves? With the game on the line, this is how Golden State plays. This is what happens to this team. They talk about, well, we can't find any momentum. We can't find any consistency. Well, it's because you've told Jonathan Kuminga he's going to be the starting forward and you're going to bench Draymond Green. After 3 games where he does it exceptionally well, you say, you know what? Never mind, you're going back to the bench, which has been the story of Jonathan Kuminga's entire existence in Golden State. It's why a year ago the story came out that he says he doesn't trust Steve Kerr to actually develop him. He shouldn't! Because Steve Kerr has shown no ability to actually develop him. This was a Warriors loss from the moment it tipped off because they do not know how to close basketball games. And last night, they let Austin Reeves close them out in a game that shouldn't have been that competitive. The only reason it was is because Steph Curry at 36, and he's probably going to miss one of their next 2 games because he's got aching knees, can still put it up with anybody. It was an embarrassment for the Golden State Warriors on what has been an absolutely horrid stretch over the last 15 games, Maestro.
Goes so much on point. And you know something? The magic word to a players only meeting, you have to be a team. And I'm just going to get this out the way right now. When I see the SWBA, it's particularly a team like Golden State, I don't see a team when you have players talking about what the coach is or is not doing, when you have players side-eyeing other players, when you see that, it is not the league now where the guys get together or the team gets together and it's about us. It's about what's on the front of the jersey and what we're going to do. We don't see that anymore, Marsh. And because of that, you can have a players-only meeting at a Waffle House chewing nasty steak. It's going to be the same thing as showing up in the game 5 minutes before the game is supposed to start and lacing up your shoes during the tip-off. It doesn't matter if you're not going to be a team. And you see very, very, very few teams now, especially in the SWBA. And what you said about Stephen Curry, I know I'm supposed to go against you a little bit. I cannot because of what he does and how he does it. But it seems like sometimes he's a man on an island. And that is a disservice to what he's able to do.
To disservice, this team is now just a half game ahead. I think it's a half game. It is, yes, a half game above the Spurs in the 10 seed, where they would be the last team into the play-in. All right, that is our show. We went a little long, but we had plenty to talk to. We'll be back on a Friday morning to keep it rolling. We are back with the game of the week, beg your pardon, in SimWorld U tonight. Arkansas and North Carolina coming to you from Chapel Hill tonight. We'll recap that, the rest of the SimWorld U action, and other happenings around the sports world tomorrow morning on SimWorld Today. Maestro, Merry Christmas once again. Thank you for joining us these last 3 holiday days. We look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be back on Friday morning here on SimWorld Today on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.
This has been a presentation of SimWorld.